Good morning, Tucson, Arizona. This is Wayne Daly, the host of the Man Tucson radio program. It's our first morning broadcast, but the podcast should be available all day Saturday, so that's a good thing. If you were expecting to find us at 6 o'clock tonight, surprise. We did post saying that we were going to be a little earlier today than normal, so I don't think that anybody should be surprised if they're looking at the Facebook feed. So anyway, again, my name is Wayne Daly, Man Tucson radio program, and I want to, first of all, thank Jacob Coffin for the opening tune, the Man radio program jingle, as it were. He came up with that for us. Very talented young man at San Diego Christian College. Used to be the worship leader, co-worship leader at Crossroads Church here in Tucson, Arizona. And he's off doing some great things, getting ready to go on a mission trip down into Central America. So we wish him nothing but the best. It's been a busy week. Actually, last weekend was a busy weekend. We didn't even have the Man Tucson radio program on Saturday last week. We had it on Friday night because we were preparing for the Rough Cut men's event, the men's movie event with David Dusek from Rough Cut Men, who came out and put on a great event. I don't like to call it an event, a gathering. There's not really a right word for it. You know, the event happened at the table between the men, the conversations that happened between the men as a result of some of the topics that we discussed. You know, we discussed friendship, and we discussed, a man's story. We discussed, where you're not having reconciliation. There was just a lot of deep things that got discussed. And we had 20 men from 9 different churches. I know 20 men doesn't seem like a large turnout, but it really was the perfect number for the Saturday event. You know, it gave us just enough to be personal. It gave me enough. Gave us enough men for me to be able to meet everybody and kind of connect with everybody. And we really did have a lot of fun. There were some great movie clips. You know, there's some heartstrings got tugged. What David called the guy cry warning. You know, for some of the movie clips that pulled on the heartstrings of the men. There was some funny clips, got us laughing. Really did kind of turn the key and engage the conversation switch on some men. So at least at our table, I know we had some great conversations. There were some scholarships that were handed out from local businesses. I know that Farmers Insurance provided a scholarship for one of the guys that was there. I want to thank Jay Hansen, the Man Tucson insurance agent, for providing one of those scholarships for one of the men who really, really benefited from being there. So we're looking forward to our next event, probably next year, with David Dusek. We're going to be focusing on supporting some other events, some other local events, still taking care of what's happening at the park here on Sunday mornings through Man Tucson Outreach. We have a men's team that takes care of some below poverty line, homeless, as it were. Homeless to me is a touchy term. It's a weird word for me. Homeless. I have a home. I have a home here in Tucson that I live in, but I also have a home, after this life is over and God has called me home, therefore I'm not homeless. And that term tends to get a little scrambled. There are people that live outside that are sometimes termed as homeless, and I don't think that's really right, but I think I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent. It's early. It's early in the morning. I can't be expected to be funny all the time or to make sense all the time, so I'm just going to push forward. Anyway, we will be looking forward to more events with David Dusek here in Tucson in the coming months. I'd also like to thank Christ Community Church in East Tucson. They provided the space. The space was absolutely perfect. We had the event in a gymnasium, so there was that sound. It was perfect. The movie sound was awesome. It was booming. It was loud. We could see the screen. We knew what was going on. But just sitting in a gym, it's a lot different than sitting in the sanctuary of a church. It was a little grittier. It was a little bit easier to kind of connect to men on that level of not feeling like you had to be all upright and proper. The cookie cutter sweater vest wearing Christian man. David said something during the event that kind of hung on me. He said, we're not trying to reach church men. We're trying to reach kingdom men. And that's true, because there's a lot of men that have been, there's a lot of men and women that have been wounded in churches. And that's going to happen because we're all human. It doesn't mean that pastors are out there, formulating an agenda to hurt people. It happens. It's a byproduct. We have an expectation, when we go someplace. Typically I have an expectation. You go to Disneyland, you expect to have fun. You go to the grocery store, you expect to save a few cents and be able to fill up your pantries. You go to the gas station, you expect that you're going to be putting gas in your car. You go to a church, you expect certain things. And we all expect different things when we go to church. Some people go to church to not to use Christianese, but to get fed, to get something that they feel like they need. They have an aching. They have a true desire to get close to God, and they go to church with a misunderstanding of how that happens. And it's not like a bird feeding her chicks, and just regurgitating. At least for me, in my experience in the churches that I've gone to, I'm not looking to be fed that way. I want to be guided, and I want to be directed. I want to hear an impactful message from a pastor who's transparent about his life, who's not standing up there trying to convince me that he's got all the answers and that he knows what I'm going through, because he's not walking in my shoes. That's what I expect from church. Now, some people go to churches, they don't, they have different expectations and they get hurt and they go away. Therefore, big, wide circle, I'm coming back around to this. David Dusek made a point about we want kingdom men, not church men, because there's a lot of men out there that have gone to churches, have been wounded. They still love the Lord, and they still, read the Bible, and they want to develop that relationship. However, they've kind of threw their hands up on the whole thing, and they're not going to church. Excuse me. So, what do we do about that? Well, I'd like to see men get on teams. I think that men on teams taking care of each other, making sure that we're living lives that God designed for us is not the answer. The answer is to you need to be invested in a community. So men need to be doing what they need to be doing as husbands, as fathers, as community members, as employees, and supporting the local church. Prayer, financially, whatever that is, that's between you and God. I know what it is for me. You need to figure it out what it is for you. Man, big tangents this morning. I promise you I'm prepared. I've got lots of notes. So anyway, Rough Cut Men, go check out the website. It's roughcutmen.org. It's David Dusek. The guy has spoken all over the world. He just come back from teaching over at West Point 2 weeks ago. He's been to Korea. He's visited army garrisons in Korea. He's getting ready to go down to Australia. His ministry, we ask you to pray for his ministry, that he continues to minister in such a way that the Lord works through him to call men up into being men and doing what they need to do to get connected to their heart. Once men get connected to their heart, they get connected to the Lord, and great things happen for families. So we ask you to be praying for him. This morning, I spent a lot of time this week. I felt really called to revisit something that worked for me. I had a code of honor kept coming up to my mind. A code of honor. A code of honors are great, and I do have one that I try to follow. I don't have it posted. I used to pay strict attention to it to kind of gut check myself to see where I'm at against the code of honor. But recently, below the code of honor, you really need to have terms. A man has to have terms. It's a set of guidelines or principles that he lives his life by. Terms will define the man. It's what you're committed to as a man. Now, your terms should be non-negotiable. They don't bend. You can change your terms, but you really shouldn't have to if you know who you are. So you need to go through a process of defining what your terms are. Your terms are unalterable, which means Again, they don't change. They're not negotiable. You're not there to negotiate. This is who you are. It's a line in the sand, as it were. And your terms really, the control is limited to yourself. Control is limited to oneself. They're kind of I will statements. I will not. Or I live, like God, the great I am. God knows what he is. And we find our identity in Jesus Christ. We're made in God's image. Therefore, we can have terms that are unalterable and non-negotiable. And, we draw a line in the sand. And sitting and thinking about that, I compiled a list, and I thought of other men and thought about their terms. I thought about maybe what men think terms are. A man that says, I solve my own problems, that's an I statement. But I don't believe that is a healthy term to have. So I'm just going to go over some of the terms that I have in this list. Excuse me. And hopefully, and I may stop and break some of them down a little bit. For example, in this list, I find my identity in Jesus Christ. That's a term. It means I don't find my identity anywhere else. I don't find it in the world. I don't find it in the sports car that I think is going to make me look cool driving down the highway and make people think I'm something. If people want to know who I am, they're going to need to invest into my life. They're going to need to listen to Man Tucson Radio or read my blog or come to my church or come to the park on Sunday morning or talk to me about putting together a men's team or have me come out and sit with them on their men's team or have coffee with me. You're not going to figure out who I am by looking at what I'm driving. You're not going to figure out who I am by what I'm wearing. You're not going to figure out who I am whether I've shaved that morning or not because surprise, ladies and gentlemen, I don't shave every day. I maybe take a razor to my skin 4 times a month. And that is if I've got appointments that I need to kind of look presentable to, maybe a job interview. I find my identity in Jesus Christ. I ask for help. That's a great term. I spent a lot of years wandering through this world, not asking for help and just getting wrapped around the axle. So, I'm faithful to my wife. That is in flesh and in my heart. The head turning, the social media is just horrible. Or these commercials they've got on TV, at night. This, what is it, the Quest Chat or whatever. And you always got this little girl talking about how cool it is that she's going to really find the man of her dreams. But the funny thing is it looks like she's made up to go out, and then she gets on the phone, and she's dolled up. The commercial's just overwhelming. Anyway, I got to look away. I usually look at my wife. We look at each other and we laugh, and I get connected to my wife. She is my baseline. She's the comparison to any other woman for beauty, so I look to her. Anyway, I need to be faithful to my wife, so I am faithful to my wife in mind, body, and spirit. I don't text or email while driving is a great term. And there's reasons for that. Not only is it against the law, it's just not safe. It's not smart. I live below my means. I'd love to have that term and love to say that I'm sticking to that term, but I'm still figuring that out. My household is still figuring out if we're living below our means. I'm involved in the life of my children and grandchildren, and yes, that's a term. That's a term that I like to have, and I can do much better at that. And just because they're terms doesn't mean I've got my life sewn up and got everything figured out. I'm not doing everything right, and that's part of the reason for teams. You get together with men who want to support and encourage you in your life. So you're on a men's team, and your men's team, the men on your team, should know what your terms are, so they know what to ask you about. So they're investing in your life. They're knowing how they can support you. And we don't beat each other up or judge each other. That's not the purpose. Your men's team is there to support and encourage you to live the life that Christ has called you to live. Your terms should be defined or help define you as a man to live the life that Christ has called you to live. I protect and fight for my wife. I experience my emotions without being controlled by them. I do not live in the past. I take care of my body through proper nutrition and physical activity. I had to laugh when I was writing that one out because I'm nowhere near that term, and it really is a great term. It's a great term that I should be applying to my life, but I don't bring that to my team. I haven't lately. Hopefully one of them is listening to this. I pray that I have the courage to bring this up at a team meeting so we can start talking about it. I've got a weight set in the garage. I've got a couple dogs I could be walking around the neighborhood. I could take, hiking with my wife. We've got bicycles. There's no reason that I shouldn't be applying that term or embracing that term to improve my life. I treat other people better than I want to be treated. That's a term I have. I offer solutions to others only when help is requested. Now, that would be a great term, and I'm not sure if that's my term. I think it should be a term because I tend to be the guy that offers advice. Here, take my advice. I'm not using it. So I need to be better at that. I'm a problem solver. I can't help it. I see a problem, I want to fix it. Oh, I got a tool for that. Let me give you let me open my toolbox. So I say what I want to say as long as it's not malicious, mean-spirited, or self-righteous. I cannot be bought. That's a term that comes from California. When I, or actually not even California, that term, I've struggled with that through my whole life. I've always been about how much money I'm making. And right now, I've drawn the line in the sand and make it about I cannot be bought. I have to do what I'm called to do. I learn from my successes and my failures. I apologize once. Listen, that is a term for me, to apologize once. And the whole thing with apologizing once is if you do it right the first time, you don't need to apologize more than once. If you are truly repentant and sorry, and you go to that person to ask forgiveness, you should only have to apologize once. Now, if that person doesn't forgive you, the weight of that transaction is then bore on their shoulders because you have gone with an open heart and earnestly asked forgiveness. So therefore, I don't need to apologize more than once if I do it right the first time. So if I've apologized more than once, that means that I haven't really owned my mistake, which is another term. I own up to my mistakes. It probably means I haven't prayed, and that's another term. I pray, and I need help with that term. I ask for directions when I'm lost. I seek the wisdom of men who have gone before me. I know and pursue what makes me happy. I appreciate, accept, and apply honest feedback when it's applicable. I focus what I can control, and that's typically just my attitude and response. Those are really the only things I have any control over. I don't have a false perception of what I can and cannot control. I know what I can control. I can't control my wife. It's not my job to control my wife. It's my job to live with her in an understanding manner. It's my job to support her in her dream, in her vision, and her desires. And we'll get to that later. We're going to talk a little bit about Camp the movie that's coming up. But that's what I can control. My attitude towards everybody else and my response to everybody else. Now, I pursue friendships with people whose values and priorities are similar to my own. I do that. I like to surround myself with people that have the same values and priorities. It helps keep me on track for what God has called me to do. I value people over things. And that's a term I struggle with. Again, go back to that sports car analogy. I like to have new things. I like to, look, that's shiny. It's like that whole, look, squirrel. I'm kind of that way with things. I value simplicity, and my wife will testify to how true that is. I take risks. And that's recently, I've had proof of that in my life. I am patient with people and situations. I am not afraid to offer my opinion, even when it is contrary to what is popular. So, these are just terms. Those are all my I statements. Those are what define me as a man. That really helps people understand who I am and to know what their boundaries are with me and where I'll go. Now that terms are defined, you got to live them out. And to live them out, to be the man you want to be. And really where I learned about terms was there was a men's weekend that I went to in 1995 in Los Angeles. And there was a lot of discussion about terms there. And that's really where I learned about terms. I didn't really learn how to be a man from my father, and I think that's a common thing today. My father was a great man. The second greatest man to walk this planet was my father. However, he was absent quite a bit, and he struggled, and he taught me a lot by not being there. So I'm not going to go, and that's not today's show. My story is my story, and we'll get to my story, in a future podcast. But that's not for today. Anyway, I wanted to get to terms. If you don't know what your terms are, you're a leaf in the wind. Remember that scene in Forrest Gump, that leaf that's just kind of blown, or is it a feather? I don't know. It's early. It's Saturday morning. Anyway, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. So know your terms. Your terms are what people come up against when they try to change you. Now, if you found your identity in Christ, you're going to really be able to define your terms by exploring what the Bible says. By really digging into the Word, praying about it, and asking for help to open the Word up in your heart, to give you understanding, and that's going to help you define your terms. The other thing that's going to really help you define your terms is getting with some men and discussing what you're reading, discussing your life. So I encourage you, if you need help understanding what terms are, you want to figure that out, send me an email. Hit me up. We'll figure something out for help getting you the help you need to figure out what your terms are, because a man without terms is lost, in my opinion. And there's been too many times that I see that happen. All right, so this morning, that's it. That's what are terms. So we've got a couple pieces of, I don't like to say business. I don't do business here. This is just hanging out and having fun. So. What's next? Oh, I was talking about my wife, supporting my wife in her dreams and her visions. And my wife is going to director's training this summer for something called a Royal Family Kids Camp. And if you don't have any experience or understanding of what a Royal Family's Kids Camp is, they have camp 1 week a year for children who are in the system, the foster care system, child protective services. These kids, their parents have made mistakes to where the court deems that the kids can't live with them anymore. Or they're kids that their parents are continuing to make mistakes and don't want the kids. This camp shows children the love of Christ. It shows children just unconditional love for 7 days, and these kids need this. Now, it's remarkable timing, as my wife is preparing to go and be a director, to go to director's training with one other woman from Tucson, one of the women from our church. There's a movie that's being released. It's actually opening on April 26th, and I believe that it's running through May 2nd. It's at the Century Park Place Theater, and it's Camp the Movie. I believe that's what it's called, or the Camp Movie. Just you can look up Camp. The Camp Movie, if you go online and look up Camp. Anyway, Christina and I, my wife, we're going to be attending the showing at Century Park Place the afternoon of April 28th. We're going to go after church. We're going to take as many friends with us as we can. So we don't have a real event planned. We're just kind of going to the movie. If you're interested in going to this movie, send me an email. Send an email to events, that's plural, E-V-E-A, I'm going to start over, E-V-E-N-T-S, events at mantucson.org. And I'll make sure I'll get you some information about the movie and the what and the where and the how, and I'll send you the link, the web link, so you can go look at it. Anyway, I guess the guy that wrote it and directed it is Jacob Roebuck. He's the guy that put together this movie, or it was his experience. And you can read about it on the website. I have printed out. I'm just going to go ahead and read it to you. This is his letter, or his how did this happen? It says, a half a dozen years ago, while on a church staff, I was required to join a summer mission trip. I noticed in the bulletin an opportunity to help abused and neglected kids ages 9 through 12 through a program called Royal Family Kids Camp. I thought to myself, the last time I spent time with a 9-year-old is when I was 9. I never went to the part of the building labeled children's ministry, even when there weren't kids there. Then, in my heart, I felt the call to go help these kids. The call went against my wiring. I did not work with kids, but I also knew better than to ignore what could be a divine prompting. I still resisted interaction with children, many orphaned, who desperately need contact with loving, caring adults. Because I was on church staff, I was considered a leader and was given a role as support staff. I was relieved I wouldn't be responsible for any campers. However, when we arrived at camp, more boys showed up than we anticipated. We needed more men counselors, or some boys would have to go home. Reluctantly, I was made a counselor. I had 2 campers, Brandon and Angel. That week became the hardest and yet the best week of my life. I learned what it meant to love kids that no one else wanted. The camp experience, learning to care for the fatherless, has become the heart of the story we want to tell with our film. Why was it so hard for me to connect with kids? Where did the wall come from? Why is it so hard for men to step into a place of a father? Father is a very difficult idea for many men. For me, divorce separated my father from me for much of my childhood. My father never knew his father and sometimes felt ill-equipped to be one, but he always told me he loved me. Of course, these kids, having never heard these words, became hard, angry, and difficult. At camp, we get an opportunity to give unconditional love to those who are seemingly unlovable. And in return, we learn we have the capacity to love at a depth we never experienced before. It is our hope this film will inspire people to open their hearts to forgotten children who need adults in their life. See you at the movies, Jacob Roebuck. Now, my wife has been involved with Royal Family Kid Camp for a number of years. I hear the stories. She's shared... She maintains confidentiality, but she tells me the stories of having to go to camp and some of the hardships with counselors, but mostly the joy, hardships with kids, because they can be hard, but mostly the joy, and the transition that happens throughout the week. She's explained to me, that they I can't talk about it. It will get me all worked up. I get very emotional when I think about these kids. So. The point of my story is, if you want to see me cry, come see this movie with me, because I am going to be a big blubberfish on Sunday, April 28th at Century Park Theater. These kids have a place in my heart, and I'll do whatever I have to do to support my wife and her vision to serve these children. And speaking of serving our community, the last thing I wanted to talk about today was the Tucson Neighborhood Food Pantry. The mission of the pantry is to support and improve the quality of life for children, families, elderly, and disabled by providing necessary resources for the East Tucson community. Now, these guys, they've I don't have numbers on how many meals they've given out, but it's just been miraculous to see God move in supporting this community through the food pantry. We have food boxes. They have food boxes. I give to the food pantry. My wife and I, we always like to provide food to the food pantry. So it is we give to the food pantry. So therefore, we are giving to the community. Anyway, there are food boxes at different businesses around East Tucson. If you see a food box, drop a couple cans of food in there and know that it's going to go to a needy family. Now, some of the food needs, rice and beans, canned fruit and vegetables, canned and dehydrated based soups, canned protein like tuna or chicken, box stuffing mix, instant mashed potatoes, crackers, fruit snacks, box dinner mixes, box side dishes, noodles, macaroni, cereal, peanut butter and jelly, granola bars, cookies, tortillas, all these food needs. That stuff doesn't sit on a shelf for long, people. It gets right back out into the hands of somebody who needs it. If you're thinking of other personal needs, bar soap, shampoo, deodorant, toothbrush and toothpaste, shaving cream, paper towels, toilet paper, facial tissue, and detergent. Babies have needs too. Diapers, formula, wipes, baby food. Now, they're having a rummage sale to benefit the East Tucson Neighborhood Food Pantry, and that's going to be on Saturday, April 27th. Next weekend is going to be a very busy weekend. We've got the rummage sale. We've got the camp movie. Anyway, April 27th from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. They'll be selling baked goods as well as household and office items. Now, all of the proceeds from the sale will go to support the Tucson Neighborhood Food Pantry. You can find out more information by going to www.tnfp.org to find out more about the Tucson Neighborhood Food Pantry. I'm over 30 minutes, and which means the light starts flashing and I'm done. God bless you. Remember to pray for each other. I'll be praying for you. And I look forward to speaking with you again next weekend.